Hello everyone, this is Jimmy and welcome to episode 25 of Multiblock Madness, where my game has been running since, for about 10 hours since the end of last episode, and our drawers are filling up. The worst part about having the quarry run and me not blacklisting the fossil block is that I get a lot of these one of bones, and some of these are two of bones. I have two the Diplodocus leg bones. Woohoo. I guess I can bring some dinosaurs back to life. Somewhat excitingly, I have two scarab gems. These things can be used to make a pretty decent early game pick. I mean, it's a mining level 4, what comes with mending pick. I guess. But I don't need it anymore. And this would have been a pretty good early game sword. But we're no longer early game, so now those get to sit in the wall forever and do nothing. Perhaps a bit more usefully, I have a bunch of these Lonsdaleite and Iridium crystals, which is what I was really running our thing for, our quarry here. So let's start by upgrading our void ore miners, each of these to leveled or tier 2. Whoops, kind of tore down both of my miners without bothering to first make sure I had enough Iridium to actually upgrade both of them. Turns out I'm like 4 blocks short, so I'm going to put one of them back, put the crystal lens in it, and we'll have it start mining Iridium and whatever new crystals. This does have room for modifiers. Unfortunately, I can't make anything but the blank modifier yet, so the blank modifier is just a simple craft. If I want the speed modifier, we need mica, which can only be void resource minered for the time being until I get enough Iridium crystals to make the other miner tier 2. I'll make it a void resource miner then, so that it can, at least at, hey, look, we got our kyanite already. At least at some rate, it can dig up mica, although its rate will be pretty awful. Still, it's here. I'm going to have to add new drawer slots for all this stuff, but moving on, let's get back to our quests here. So, now that we have these black crystals, Lonsdaleite, we can make advanced casings. They're not particularly cheap, but I need 34 of them to upgrade our blast furnace. I don't technically think we need all 34 because the blast furnace it only has to reach 3,500, or each one is 20 additional heat. We have to go for 3,500 and it's already at 3,200, so that's 300 heat. I technically only need to upgrade 15 of them, but let's ask for 34, so I'm making all 34. Ended up making a few extras too because I want to also upgrade our 3D printer to make that a little faster. So what was it, 15? So that's 9 in the top layer and 6 in the second layer. Need upgrading. There's no benefit to going over the heat requirement, and I mean the higher tier cases are ever marginally more expensive than the lower ones. So we now have, oh, I forgot to put the lava back. Now we have 3,500, I believe. On the dot. Perfect. Quick sanity check. Is there any recipe that requires more than that? 3,500 is full bar, so I suspect the answer is no. We can make insanium now. But no, it looks like 3,500 is as high as it gets. Good. So we can do every single blast furnace recipe now. Let's go ahead and spend our remainder. Can I use a exchanging gadget for this? Maybe. Will you link to that? No. I looked it up in the config, and each of these casings, when upgraded to advanced tier, knocks 4% off the crafting time. I don't know if it stacks additively or multiplicatively. There's 20 of them total, so if it's additive, then let's make 10 of these. Nope, can't make that one. Let's make 10 of this one instead. It should take 20% processing time. If it's multiplicative, it would, I don't know what 0.96 to the 20th power is, but it would take that much time. Anyways, as soon as you get around to actually crafting it, come on, scheduled one. It sure doesn't look additive to me, right? It was a 20-second base starting time. So let me figure out what it would be for multiplicative. It's 44% at multiplicative. And in fact, I was looking at this, watch this. It does it, yeah, okay. So it's almost assuredly 44%. The progress bar doesn't go faster. It just stops at 44%. All right, well, I guess that's probably what I was doing before too. The old casings were 2% per. anyways, our 3D crafter is faster, and that's what matters. So we can finally begin our process of cooking iridium. I believe we've gotten a little iridium from our quarry in the beneath. It spawns very rarely, right? Less than 0.01% at all Y levels. But when you mine out the entire thing, you get a bit. It's not until a tier 5 void miner that you get it regularly, or a fusion computer. I don't want to do either of those. We're going to start by using the iridium we've got. So how do we smelt this? Probably just dump it in the blast furnace. Given its rarity, can I increase the yield further? The absolute best yield, I think, is to take the ore, put it through the rock hounding processing. So one ore gives you 2 lumps. Each lump becomes 2 shards. So there's 4 shards, and each shard contains 2 pieces of iridium, plus some other stuff. So rock hounding yield is 8x. There's mechanism yield, which is 5x. And then there's I'm lazy and still want good yield, which is 2x times 1.8. So just short of 4, but it's this easy. So I'm going to go for the I'm lazy and still want good yield option. And that is just a sag mill it with a halfway decent grinding ball. And we got 286 out of, I don't remember how many I put in. But anyways, next step is to dump this through our blast furnaces. So I give 1 to each. They use a healthy chunk of power, but actually, I think our power system can support this, but we do have to look into upgrading it soon. Each one is using something like 20k RF a tick by the looks of it. But that makes iridium ingots. I have a feeling we don't need a tremendous amount of this. At least not quite yet. And that unlocks chapter 7, the ultimate ingot. I guess we're here now. What just unlocked the shadow condenser? Oh boy. Before we get to working towards the chapter whatever objectives, I think I want to do some infrastructure projects. So with access to iridium, we can upgrade all of our advanced rocketry multi-blocks to be varying from a little bit to a lot bit faster. And that is by upgrading their coils to iridium and their motors to elite. So while looking at the elite motor, I noticed there's actually a way to get iridium plates without having the blast furnace. I'm pretty sure it's a bug, but we can uncraft a diamond plating into iridium plates, but the diamond plating is made from diamonds. It's not an iridium plate. I'm not going to abuse that bug, but it's there. Anyways, I'm going to craft a handful of these. I have the coils are the expensive ones at 8 iridium each. The motors are what, 3.5 each, because you get 4 rods per ingot. But when we put these in our various machines, it will get a lot faster. The big one to benefit from this will be the precision assembler, which has, I believe, 2 coils and 2 motors. Some of the ones that'll benefit less are like the lathe here, right? So our lathe is currently 2x. Which slot do you think the motor is in? The tooltip tells me. So we go from a 2x speed motor to a 4x speed motor, and that's the only upgrade the lathe gets, right? There's no coils in it. Likewise, the crucible, I think, has 2 coils, so 2 titanium coils become iridium coils. I didn't check its previous speed, but it's like 1.7 something, right? Now it's 4. And last but not least, our precision assembler, which took a while for it to form, is up to 64x speed from, I think it was like 7.11 or something like that. So now when I order, the big bottleneck that these machines were causing was that when I ordered, not interconnects, the connectors, these things, from environmental tech, and a lot of these go into making the environmental tech blocks. The assembly machine was, both the assembly machine and the crystallizer were taking a long time. But with those upgraded, the crystallizer will probably still be the bottleneck, but it's literally twice as fast as it used to be, maybe even more than that. Next infrastructure project will be power. So we have a couple options for that. We could do nuclear craft power, let it make this high pressure steam, and I've looked into some pre-existing nuclear craft designs. Basically their Discord has a huge collection of really awesome designs. Well, they're really awesome to me because I don't know what's good. I don't fully understand the system yet, and when you don't understand, you copy. So yeah, they have a bunch of designs. They get into like the couple 100,000 to maybe even nicking couple million RF per tick range, but they use a tremendous amount of space and resources to do so. There's an easier way to make a couple million RF per tick, and that is the mechanism fusion reactor. It consumes water and water as its fuel, which is great. Plenty of water around, and it makes like 4 million RF a tick baseline, and you can get that up to 12-ish million with a turbine. So it's both easier and more powerful than nuclear craft. Bit of a shame, nuclear craft's way cooler. But we will need the 10-ish million RF a tick once we start running, you know, tier 6 void miners, quantum Minecraft dynamic stuff. So this isn't a case where I think I can reasonably just say I'll accept the efficiency loss to work with the cooler system. Anyways, I've done nuclear craft fusion like 7 times on camera before, so we'll see the abridged version. Step 1, build a heavy water pumping station. 20-ish fully upgraded electric pumps should be sufficient. Step 2, build 2 maximum-sized thermal evaporation chambers. Into the first one, pump water until it's flowing off the top of your screen. Give both of them some heat with a resistive heater. About 5,000 RF a tick is probably enough. And it will turn, first one turns water into brine, second one turns brine into lithium. Step 3, turn the liquid lithium coming out of your thermal evaporation plant into gaseous lithium in rotary condensators. Then pump that gaseous lithium into solar neutron activators, where it gets turned into gaseous tritium. That is 1/2 of your nuclear fusion fuel. As an aside, take some of your lithium, put it into a chemical crystallizer, and turn it into lithium dust. We'll need that a lot later. Also remember that solar neutron activators require solar energy, so they only work during the day when it's not raining. Because of that, make sure you have a relatively large tritium buffer. For me, 4 ultimate gas tanks, I think should get the job done. Step 4, run some gold through your carbon infusing thingy. It takes 4 to do a task, so the auto split kind of ruins it. That makes a bunch of these whole rounds. Take these and fill them up with some fuel. The fuel we make by taking the heavy water we pumped earlier, putting it through an electric lytic separator. We can basically just toss the oxygen. We're after the deuterium here. Buffer it, and then send it into a chemical infuser where we combine 1 part deuterium with 1 part tritium from our solar neutron activators to make DT fuel. We don't have to make a lot of this because our fuel mostly we consume in these 2 forms. However, each time we have to start the reactor, we have to use one of these whole rounds. So fill each of these up with 10 units of DT fuel. That's really not a lot. Step 5, build the reactor housing itself. You will require at least 1 controller. The controller uses Iridium, which is why it's gated to post Iridium. 3 ports, I guess technically 2 ports. You can probably insert both fuels via the same port. But ports for fuel insertion for the deuterium and tritium, a port to extract your energy from. Leave yourself room for a port to extract steam from later if you want to turn it into a steam reactor, and a laser focus matrix that you pump a laser into. So I have 16 lasers here feeding into a series of amplifiers that will, once it reaches 800 million RF and I give it a redstone signal, it will shoot that laser beam into the reactor. That's what starts the reactor up. Place your whole round into the reactor controller, set your injection rate to at least 2. I think maybe it's at least 4. It's probably at least 2. And wait for your lasers to come up to 800 million RF. That's the minimum I have set. So it'll take it probably 5-ish minutes to reach 800 million. Step 5.1, while waiting for your lasers to charge, may as well upgrade our cable system. The beautiful thing about mechanism cables is you can just click the next tier alloy on it and it'll upgrade 8 connected cables anywhere on the line. So just click until, there we go, it takes just over a stack to upgrade all of our cables, and then do it again and again. Step 5.2, get extremely impatient and use up all the time in your time in a bottle to accelerate the lasers. Let's speed this up. Good news is because I've been AFK a bunch, I have 32 hours in my time in a bottle. So, almost there. Step 6, our laser has reached sufficient energy, so we can give it a redstone signal to fire it. And bam! That starts up our fusion reactor. So, now, I mean, we're done. That's it. The energy it produces is based on the injection rate. So let's set the unit to RF. We are currently making 300,000 RF a tick, but our maximum stable injection rate is... can we do 99? Let's think about that one for a second. So the highest injection rate we can set the thing to is... Oopsies. RF fuel 90... I guess 98 because it has to be an odd number. That burns 48 millibuckets per tick of deuterium or 49 millibuckets per tick of deuterium and tritium. We definitely make deuterium fast enough because that's just the electrolytic separator here. When it comes to tritium, we produce 300 millibuckets per tick of brine, and I think that might be the cap of what the thermal plant produces, which means we only produce 30 millibuckets per tick of lithium, and lithium is 1-to-1 to tritium, I believe. Let me confirm that. 2 lithium makes 2 tritium, so yeah, which means we cannot sustain a 99 injection rate quite yet. To fix that, so the maximum sustain, let's set it to 50. I know 50 is sustainable. We produce 30 millibuckets per tick. The conversion only happens during daytime, but the tower still runs during nighttime, so that's fine. And the we siphon off a tiny bit of our lithium to make lithium dust. So let's double our lithium production by building a second evaporation tower that's turning water into brine. 2 brine towers, when this one is fully heated, will make 600 millibuckets per tick of brine, which is 60 millibuckets per tick of lithium, which is more than 49, which means we can now max out our fuel injection rate. Now at a max fuel injection rate, our power will... I'm going to let this stabilize at whatever it stabilizes at. It's probably going to be 8-ish million if I had to guess. The game just tells me. It'll produce 9.8 million RF per tick as a air-cooled reactor. If I want even more than that, I can turn it into a water-cooled reactor, which will give me 2.5 million RF a tick right off the bat, and this much steam, which I can turn into more RF. I think mechanism turbines are 2-to-1. Does that actually end up being more? If so, it's not more by much. Nope. If we get 2 RF per millibucket of steam out of a mechanism turbine, we get the exact same energy. So either mechanism turbines produce more than 2 RF per millibucket, or it doesn't make any sense at all to turn this into a water-cooled reactor. In any event, 10 million RF a tick is probably just enough to finish the pack out with. So with that, I consider our reactor bit here done. I'm going to continue letting this charge up so that it has multiple startups worth of laser energy in it, because every now and then I do something wrong and our reactor will shut down. Probably the most likely cause of that, as I see it right now, is if we get like some very poorly timed rainstorms back to back, where it rains it rains during the day and then nighttime comes and then it rains during the day again. I could see our tritium supply drying up, but that's probably more of an edge case than it is a realistic problem. Anyways, power's taken care of. So, next infrastructure project is that I want to do away with these assembler towers. They're great and all, but they're kind of dated, and I'm about to run out of space in them. I am on my, basically, I'm on my last row of slots here, so I have 32 plus a couple, 35-ish slots. I think it's time we swapped it over to the mass assembler from Lazy E2. I think we could have made this a little while ago. Tungsten steel was the gate here, and we've had tungsten steel for some time. But the mass assembler it's just one very, very big and fast assembler. Oh, but first, Nuclear Craft doesn't care about your steam. It'll accept mechanism steam and get 16 RF out of it instead of 2. So I guess that's how you get boatloads of energy out of mechanism steam. Is it necessary? I don't know. If I find myself needing 160 million RF a tick, I guess so. Back to the mass assembler, we'll start by putting its frame together. So it's just a hollow cuboid with the edges being made from frames and the sides being made from vents. On the inside is where we put the good bits. So, and on the edge you have to put, oh god, lag, one controller and optionally a I/O port. Now onto the inside we put the bits that make it actually function, and that is the, let's see if I can find it, pattern providers and crafting coprocessors. Each pattern provider holds, I think it's 36 patterns, maybe it's 25 patterns, I don't know. It holds some number of patterns, and each coprocessor increases the speed, or maybe it increases how many patterns can be crafted at once. Effectively, more patterns, faster crafting. And you have all the internal space to fill with those. You don't have to take up every slot. But I'm gonna start with maybe like, I don't know, 10 of the 20 of these and like 20 of these. I made my mass assembler 5x5x5 internal, which is 125 functional slots. I do not imagine I will use up all of them. Ended up going with 25 each of the pattern and coprocessors because those fill one layer each. So I'm hoping that that light inside doesn't break it. And multi-block assembled. It didn't. Good. All we have to do is hook this up to our ME system now. If I grab a ME conduit, I think it can only connect to the controller, and it only takes one channel to hold all of the patterns. So each pattern holds, is this 9 by 4, 36 total slots. And the crafting speed is based on number of coprocessors, right? So we do 76 work a tick, and I guess it takes 16 work to craft an item. So we can craft 76 divided by 16 is what? 32, 4 and change items a tick. That's pretty quick. So now comes the fun part. We have to take every pattern that's over here and move it over there. It also does not, as last I checked, it did not show up on the interface terminal, which is a little bit unfortunate. Yeah, it doesn't show up on the interface terminal. What you can do is the I/O port here is functionally like an item I/O port for these item slots. So what you can do is put a storage bus on it and put it on its own little subnet and use that subnet kind of as an interface terminal, but it's not quite the same. Let me show you what I mean. Here we go. So put a storage bus on its own subnet connected just to the I/O port here, and then run that around to a terminal somewhere near your terminal block. And when you drop patterns into here, the pattern gets placed into the I/O port and you can withdraw it from here. So you can kind of treat this basic terminal as an interface terminal, only for the mass assembler though. But we don't get some of the really nice search options, right? We can't, search by inputs or outputs. We can, at least, can we? No, we can't. So it's not quite as nice as the interface terminal. If you do need a search though, I believe this gives you, this gives you the ability to search by input or output. This makes illuminated panels. So that's searching by output. It uses quartz glass. No, so you only get search by output. You don't get search by input as a feature, which is a bit of a shame. But anyways, I'm gonna move all of my molecular assembler patterns, all 64 interfaces worth of them, into the mass assembler now. In the process, I'm going to modernize some of these. So a lot of these patterns still use, say, circuits. The circuits from what is it called, Tech Reborn, but we're at a point where we can make the mechanism ones instead. So this will be, since this is the last chance I get to search by inputs and easily select these, I'm going to upgrade all of these to use the mechanism circuits instead of the Tech Reborn one. This whole using a terminal in place of a interface terminal thing doesn't work quite as well as I think I would have liked. So if I don't hold shift, everything looks the same. Oh, by the way, it does tell you though if you have the same recipe twice. It's like, hey, you got 2 of these. But anyways, if you do hold shift, the frame rate you can kind of see it goes away because of all the items being rendered. But like if I don't hold shift, it's tough to put the items in. I have to click them in one at a time. So I'm not really using that anymore. Kind of putting my recipes in directly by clicking on it. There's a reason I built this within interaction distance of my pattern terminal. I had a feeling we would end up doing that. Last set of recipes to migrate over. Once you do this, let's see how many recipes I duplicated. I know when I was playing OmniFactory on stream, chat constantly caught me duplicating recipes on accident. And yeah, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I think I cleared a 7th one already. So I've accidentally duplicated 7 recipes twice. It doesn't actually, like, there's no harm in accidentally doing a recipe twice, besides the fact that you waste a pattern. And then the fact that they stacked means that they were literally the exact same recipe. It's kind of curious that you get to, you know, look back and say, well, looks like, you know, I thought I was good about not duplicating recipes. Turns out that's a lie. Anyways, that is our molecular assembler setup taken care of. I'm torn about whether or not I should tear this all down right now. I don't really need it anymore, on the one hand. On the other hand, like, it's conceivable that for whatever reason the mass assembler doesn't work like I want it to, and then I have to rebuild this. Let's leave it here for a little while, and if I don't end up using it in the next couple of videos, we'll probably have the nice chance to tear it down. I'm pretty sure I shouldn't vein mine it. I'm like 90% sure that if you vein mine an applied energistics component, it chains to the cables as well because they have the same item ID. Is that true? 6274 and say an interface. No, that's a very different ID. So maybe it is safe to vein. Oh no, but that's wait. Yeah, the cable to, I don't know, maybe it is. We'll probably not find out. Let's take our new mass assembler for a spin, though, and see what happens if I request, say, 10,000 binder composite. This is an item that has a lot of subcrafting steps, so when I hit the go button, we can see how fast it crafts. Tough to say. Is that actually faster than... You know what? I think it's not faster than it used to be, because I'm bottlenecked not by my assembler speed, but actually by the fact that I only have 3 co-processors per crafting CPU. Let's fix that. We can add... I mean, I'm just going to add more crafting CPUs in general, but I'm also going to make our existing ones bigger. 64 kilobytes is enough to hold my largest crafting tasks for the time being. I'm sure that'll eventually change. When we get there, we'll build a larger crafting CPU out. But anyways, I think enough time has passed that we can finally upgrade our Void resource miner here to tier 2. I've over time slipped in the speed modifiers onto this miner as we've gotten the resources for it, the mica, and now this is up to 80 ticks per operation at a cost of 20,000 RF per tick. You know, 20,000 out of our 10 million, no big deal. And upgraded. I was a couple pieces of mica short to make the last speed upgrade for here, so it'll have 1 null modifier, but whatever. 400 RF per tick is basically 0. And now we have 2 tier 2 miners running. To upgrade them to tier 3, we need a whole bunch of those environmental tech crystals, and right now I've got a whopping, I think it's this one, 94. So it takes tier 3, 56 times 2, because it's 2 per structure frame, and another 6 blocks, so that's 54. So it's like just over 150, 160-ish to make tier 3 for 1 single miner. Given that, I think it's probably like 2-ish hours of mining time with full upgrades. I'm just going to, once again, between this episode and next, leave the game open to mine. And then when we get back next time, we can move on to tier 3. And once we get to tier 3, tier 4 area, the progression goes pretty quick because the miners become extremely, extremely fast. Anyways, I think that's it for today. We've got our infrastructure nicely built up. When we get back next time, I guess we will begin the slow process of making ultimate ingots, or at least working towards ultimate ingots. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope to see you in the next one. Take care, and bye-bye.